Years ago, I made jelly donuts from Pokemon. These were actually sweet onigiri because they didn't really know what to call them back then. And now we have chocolate onigiri from One Piece. I will be revisiting some of the steps that I had taken to make the original jelly donut, but a chocolate version. One of the characters in One Piece, Rika, actually made these chocolate onigiri and brought them to Zoro. She had said that chocolate makes everything better, and honestly, I kind of agree with her. To make these chocolate onigiri, I'm adding in 1/2 cup of water into my pot, followed by 1/2 cup of sugar. So basically 1 part sugar, 1 part water. This is a basic recipe for a simple syrup. Give this a quick whisk, make sure that the sugar starts to dissolve in that water, but we're going to do something a little bit different with this. This is just 1 part of the chocolate syrup. Throw in a pinch of salt because yes, you do need a little bit of salt for your sweetness. And then 1/4 cup of cocoa. So if you're keeping track, you're going to need 1 part water, 1 part sugar, 1/2 part of cocoa. Give this a quick mix and we're basically going to boil this together. This is essentially homemade Hershey's syrup. This is the easiest thing to make. This has to simmer for about 5 minutes just until it thickens up. But you do want to pay attention to it because it can boil over very easily because of that cocoa powder. After a few minutes, this is what my chocolate sauce starts to look like. It's pretty aerated from being boiled, but that's okay. We do have to let this rest before we can use it, but what I'm actually going to do is take out just about 1/4 cup of my Hershey's chocolate sauce. I'm gonna place it into this measuring cup and we're gonna save this for later. Now here comes the fun part and one of my favorite ingredients, Agar or Agar powder to help thicken this thing up. This is gonna be really interesting. A little bit of Agar powder goes a long way, so I'm using less than 1/4 teaspoon for this batch of sauce. Throwing that in there and then giving this a nice whisk. And this is actually going to help thicken up the sauce just a little bit. I'm gonna show you what we're gonna do with this. This is super fun. I did this for the jelly donuts and it made me really happy about it. And because there's so few ingredients, you could try this at home. You can buy a pack of Agar powder for like $5 on Amazon. Now Agar does have to cook at a nice simmer for about 5 minutes to activate. So while that's simmering, I'm gonna get something else ready. I ran into a little bit of a problem. I can't find my silicone mat that I would normally use for this. So instead, I'm just going to use a very clean sheet tray. We need this stuff to be super thin, so after this is boiled, it's really nice and thick, and I'm gonna pour this directly onto my sheet tray and try to spread this out as evenly as possible. You want a nice thin layer here because this is actually going to be our nori, or at least look like nori. I really wouldn't bother using a spatula here. What you really wanna do is just let gravity do its thing and just try to even this out as much as possible. You can already see how thick it's gotten because of the agar. So what we need to do next is just let this cool down because I don't think that's really going anywhere. This really shouldn't take too long to harden and cool down because it's so thin. So while this is cooling down, we're gonna work on the onigiri. Now I actually was a little prepared today. I had rice made ahead of time. So I'm gonna take just about 1 cup of steamed rice. This should give us, you know what, we'll do 1 cup. We're gonna do 1.5 cups of steamed rice. I really don't need to show you guys every single time when I make rice, do I? We don't need to fluff the video that much. And this, my friends, is where it gets interesting. Normally, when you do rice like this, and typically not for onigiri, you could use sushi vinegar, but instead, we're gonna be using chocolate sauce. Chocolate makes everything better. Gonna pour in just a small amount to start, just to see what this starts to look like. The onigiri she had in the anime didn't actually look like it was covered with chocolate, so I'm gonna make sure I don't put too much chocolate in here because we still have to add chocolate chips. Hopefully the sugar in here also kind of helps thicken up the rice a little bit so it's easier to mold. This is what my rice looks like right now. You can see it's not too dark. It almost looks like a very light Cocoa Crispy, which I should have put Cocoa Crispies in here. I'm gonna add a little bit more and keep adding this until you get the desired color or texture or what, I don't know what's happening. Just add chocolate, you know, have some fun with it. Now I'm folding all of this together until there aren't too many pockets of white rice left. This is what my rice looks like. Look at that, not too bad, huh? Now this is the next step, chocolate chips, in particular mini chocolate chips. These are what the chocolate chips look like that I'm using. If your chocolate chips are too big, you may end up just having very big chocolate chips in there. I don't know, I thought the mini ones would look cute. So I'm putting in around maybe 2 tablespoons worth of chocolate. I like a lot of chocolate. 2 tablespoons of chocolate chips. fold this in here. These will slightly melt due to the heat of the rice itself, but that's gonna give you a really, really nice like gooiness once you crack them open. Look at it. This is gonna be so much fun. The chocolate chips definitely melted pretty quickly. I probably should have waited a little bit to add those in, but now it's just extra chocolatey. Now I went to inspect my chocolate nori and it just doesn't come off. I think I actually didn't put in enough agar, and you can see it just is kind of fudgy, which is actually really delicious looking, but this is not what we need. So I have to consult an expert past me. It's really good. What is it? Around, but we're going to use about 2 tablespoons worth of Dutch cocoa powder, followed by about 4 tablespoons worth of sugar. I said 4 tablespoons worth of sugar. It's fine, just go with it. And then we're going to this with 3 years ago. 3 years ago? According to Smarter Me, I need 2 tablespoons of Dutch cocoa powder, followed by about 4 tablespoons worth of sugar. This is very entertaining watching past me struggle with the same recipe one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4-ish. Literally the same thing happened earlier. And then finally, 1/2 cup worth of water according to the actual chef. Give us a quick stir, make sure all of that is well incorporated so this way it evenly boils. Yeah, but how much agar did you use, dude? We're gonna need about 1 teaspoon worth of agar powder for this. Past me put in 1 teaspoon of agar powder, so it was way more than I normally would, but that recipe worked really well. What do I know? Now it is time to put in 1 teaspoon of agar powder according to chef. This is 4 times the agar that I had used earlier. Think about that, 4 times. Same amount of sugar and water and cocoa powder, but way more agar. Actually less cocoa powder, now that I think about it. That one was really rich, the one we had made earlier. Same thing, we're gonna boil this for a few minutes and then pour it out. But I did find my silicone mat, so that's gonna help out a lot. Looks like it's thickened up according to chef. Now hopefully round 2 works. Luckily, this is a relatively easy recipe, so even if it gets messed up, it's really not too bad to put back together, and it's super cheap because it's just cocoa powder, sugar, and water. Oh, and a pinch of salt, which we totally forgot. That's okay. We will salt the onigiri. I am gonna try to spread this around so it's nice and thin. It'd be way better if not this, and use this instead. Little offset spatula action, get this nice and thin. Now this just has to chill until it solidifies, and hopefully this one works. Now while this is cooling down and solidifying, we're gonna form the onigiri. Now I am just going to hand form these, but if you want, you can use an onigiri press like I've used previously, and that works relatively well, but I know not everyone has them, so we're just gonna try to do our best and get chocolate all over our hands. I'm going to gently press these to not crush the rice, and what's nice is that the syrup that we added actually did work how I intended, where it can hold the rice relatively well together. So that's really nice to see. At least that part worked out. So if nothing else, we have these. But these, my friends, are far from done. We have a couple more steps to do before we can actually enjoy chocolate onigiri. I think that's a pretty good looking onigiri, if I do say so myself. Place that right there. Look at it, so cute. Nice and chocolatey. Probably gonna taste like cocoa pebbles with milk in the morning. Remember, when you're forming rice for onigiri or for sushi or anything like that, you don't want to put in too much pressure. If you put too much pressure in, you end up breaking the rice grains, and that's not what you want. What you're really trying to do is join them together. That's kind of what was explained to me when I worked in a sushi restaurant. So I'm being very, very gentle. When I press here, I'm really just pressing gently and then rotating it. I'm pressing gently and rotating it. Pressing gently and rotating it. And that pretty much forms your onigiri. I think we're able to get 3 pretty good sized onigiri with the 1.5 cups of rice. So I'm assuming we got essentially a 1/2 cup of rice per onigiri. And there is number 3. Those look great as is. Honestly, I would just eat them like this. But maybe, wash your hands a little bit. You don't want that everywhere. Maybe you do want it everywhere. It's your kitchen. Do whatever you want. So in the time that we finished the onigiri, our chocolate nori is also ready to go, which is really nice. So yes, past me is way smarter than previous me. Now I'm using a pizza cutter to clean this up, but you can just use a small paring knife. That's totally okay too. I'm going to trim off some of this and get it as even as possible. which means to say I'm really bad at drawing lines, but look at it. That's perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. Yep, just like I remember. I'm gonna cut just a couple of strips of our, that is the most crooked line. What is this line? Can someone explain? You can't even see. What is this? This is not even at all. Look at how uneven this is. What am I supposed to do? You see that? What am I supposed to do this? Hey, Rachel, do you want a chocolate onigiri? Look at, it's chocolate nori. Oh, I forgot the lights on. It's okay, it was very moody in here, it was very nice.
None of the lights are on.
Rachel walks in and she's like, why are none of the lights on? Because I'm in a tank top with an apron making chocolate onigiri. No one needs to see this. Rachel is evading my chocolate onigiri. Let me know in the comments down below. Do you want to eat the chocolate onigiri? I think the answer is yes.
No.
Nobody's talking to you, Rachel. It's just between me and you now. Look at this. It's a good little nori strip right there. Look at that. It's perfect. No one would know. No one would know. Except everyone. I'm going to take the rice ball, place the nori. Oh, that looks so fun. I'm sorry. That looks awesome. It doesn't stick very well, though. That is one problem, I guess, is that the nori does not want to stick to the rice. How do I make this happen? What I'm going to try to do is just get the rice a little wet, because it is a bit dry, and then see if this sticks to it that way, just like you would with regular nori. I don't know. Okay, it looks like it kind of worked. A little bit of wet onto the rice. Plop this onto here. Can we make this happen? I think this is the best it's going to be. But that is pretty cool. Let's see. Will it hold up at all? I think so. I think that holds up pretty well. Can it hold up like this? It can. Look at that. Oh my God, I had an idea. Remember, there are no mistakes, only new opportunities. If we take some of this stuff, this chocolate-like sauce that didn't quite set up, and use it to our advantage, we can smear this onto the onigiri. Do you see where I'm looking? This is like double fudge now. Then we can take this. Now it's like a double, triple chocolate surprise. Oh, baby. Little fold. Boom. No way. It's so good. Come on. Come off the page. Yes. Look at it. Fantastic now. Little jiggle test. Screw you past me. I've learned. I've evolved. I'm gonna do the same thing with the other two, and then we have one more thing to do to these. And there, my friends, are some chocolate onigiri. They look really fun. Honestly, I would be super excited to maybe get these at a party. I would probably order them at a restaurant, depending on the restaurant. One last thing I wanted to do is add in just a touch of shaved coconut. This is just dried shaved coconut, so this way it looks a little bit like sesame seed. Not too much on there, you just want a little bit. It gives it a nice like contrast of the really, really dark colors. Alternatively, you could shave some white chocolate on there. Alternatively, you could melt some marshmallows on there. A little s'mores action. And there, my friends, are some chocolate onigiri from One Piece. I will say so myself, these look fantastic, and I can't wait to jump into this. I want to say thank you to all of my wonderful patrons right over here for helping support the channel directly. This video is sponsored by patreon.com/CHEFPK, and if you want to support the channel directly, that's literally the best way to do it. You can join for as little as $5 a month, and you'll get access to our members-only Discord section. There, we can talk directly about anime, food, everything in between, and that's also where I pick your brain about what videos you want to see next. Not only that, but some of the higher tiers over on Patreon, I like to surprise people at conventions. So if you're one of those higher tiered members and we meet up at a convention, you're probably gonna get a special treat. It might not be chocolate onigiri, but it might be some real life devil fruits that I'm working on. So if you want to support the channel directly, head over to patreon.com/CHEFPK and get in today, so that way you get all of those really cool rewards. Now, let's try this chocolate onigiri. Cheers. That's phenomenal. It tastes more like chocolate than it does rice, but the rice actually helps carry the flavor really well. It's like its own vessel of chocolatey delivery goodness. There isn't a ton of chocolate in the rice. You can see some of the rice didn't actually get covered, which is a good thing because you have the other layers of chocolate from the chocolate chips to the chocolate seaweed that we had created earlier. But there's still one thing wrong with it. Well, I mean, you know, it's still probably good. My name is CHEFPK, and remember, keep playing with your food.
Delicious.